It is August 24th in the year of our Lord 2025, and this is Lunduke's Week in Tech, where I look over all the stories that I actually thought were important this week. And I want to stop for a moment, and I want to think about the fact that we have not had a boring week of tech news in a long time, and I miss boring weeks of tech news. Do you remember when week after week it seemed like the only news that was coming out of the computer world or the tech world was, a new point upgrade for this particular operating system or web browser. Oh, here's a new review of an OS that launched last month. There was a point in time. I've been covering this stuff for about the last 20 years now, but there was a point in time where sure, there were some big news stories, every month and every quarter, but every week, no. We had some boring weeks in there, weeks where we had to sit around and we got okay, we have to get articles out this week because our job is to write articles about news. We have to do a podcast this week, but what do we have to talk about? Well, there's a point upgrade for Firefox, and there was a minor bug that caused a few people an inconvenience in Ubuntu. And Microsoft announced that they will, in fact, make more versions of Windows soon. It's like that. We had to scrape the bottom of the barrel for news. Not anymore. It has been years since I've had a week where I could just sit around and be like, you know what? I want to ponder about what happens if I install Linux on a baked potato. I have not had those moments in a long time. This week we had the news about the United States government acquiring a 10% ownership of Intel. That is crazy. That is some of the biggest tech news in a very, very long time. The implications of that are potentially vast and far-reaching. And what's crazy is that's not necessarily going to be the biggest story of the month of August. When all is said and done, that may not even be the biggest story. Most years in the tech industry, we'd look back on that one time that the U.S. government became the majority shareholder of Intel Corporation as just one of those earth-shattering sort of events in the computer industry. But it might not even be the top story this month. It's crazy. That's crazy. So as I understand it, with that story, the article for that went out yesterday. Gosh, it's just been nonstop. I haven't even put a show out for that particular article yet. That'll come out tomorrow with some additional follow-up information. But basically, there was a whole lot of controversy around the CEO of Intel. And so it resulted in the CEO of Intel, Lip-Bu Tan, now I've got his name all turned around in my head. He sat down with President Trump, and they had a one-on-one meeting. And in the meeting, President Trump floated the idea of, hey, maybe everything would be better if you just gave 10% of your company to the government. The CEO of Intel was like, well, yeah. What the heck's going on? Oh my gosh. I mean, there's a million things we could talk about on that topic. But in the article, I go into the potential issues relating to privacy and spyware, considering the Intel management engine already provides vast, unparalleled amounts of spying capability on users. The Intel management engine is essentially a 486 embedded inside every Intel desktop, laptop, server class CPU that has full access to everything, like the network, your everything that goes through the CPU, the whole works, right? And so and it has a built-in web server because it's running the Minix operating system. From Andrew Tannenbaum, right? The Minix operating system is embedded inside a 486 class processor, which is inside every, Intel i9 and Xeon and whatnot that ships. And so what happens when a government has control of that? Right? I mean, what happens when a government is the majority shareholder in a company that makes processors that are everywhere with massive, crazy spyware? And red flags just start shooting off like fireworks. It's crazy. But again, maybe not even the biggest story of the month. So the Microsoft Intifada has been doing its thing all week long, and oh my heavens, I've done one show around this and 3 articles so far, and it's normally I don't cover political protests, right? The Lunduke Journal doesn't cover political protests. I don't, there's protests on colleges about this country or this war or that war, whatever. I don't really cover that. But what's interesting about this from our point of view is it's Microsoft employees specifically protesting Microsoft and making demands of their employer that their employer not only stop doing business, in this case with the state of Israel, but shut down offices in Israel, stop doing business with any company that does business in Israel, including just sell products into Israel. And they're even demanding that Microsoft cut off all licenses for everything sold into Israel. That means disabling versions of Windows, revoking Office and Microsoft 365 licenses and subscriptions, all of it to anyone who is in or tied to Israel, right? Crazy, big, sweeping demands that Microsoft in no way is going to do because, come on, that's the amount of money that it would cost them to do all of that is just utterly obscene. And so, but they're making these demands. And this group of Microsoft employees, some ex-Microsoft employees, and I've been trying to dig into it, but it seems like there are some individuals who are actually not only not related to Microsoft, but potentially not even from the area. Like they might have been brought in from the outside. Now, a lot of you may be thinking, okay, well, who's funding this? And I don't know that anyone is funding it. If you watch their events, they don't have resources, right? Like this particular group they're literally, they've held 3 events so far. And I'll talk about that more later this week. I've got another show coming out around this week where I go in depth, but they literally have so few resources that they raided a farmer's market, stole like tables and chairs and everything from the farmer's market in order to build a barricade. Oh my gosh. And their signs look like they're written in crayon, and it looks like the cheapest, lowest rent set of protests. So I don't know that there's any actual outside funding coming in for this, but there are some outside people that are coming in and taking part in it. But what's crazy is after the first day of protests, I received word from one inside source that it sounded like one person was being fired for taking part in the first day of protests. I have not been able to confirm that with a Microsoft representative yet because Microsoft is not responding at all to any of this. Even after, let me see if I can show you a picture here. No, that's a different story. That's a different story. There it is. All right. So, even after the second day of protests, where is this now? Oh, yes, where the protesters just really vandalized the heck out of Microsoft property, like blood, fake blood is as red paint, just like buckets of red paint splattered all over Microsoft signs and concrete, fake dead bodies everywhere. Like it was kind of crazy gross. Weird green trash bags tossed all over with who knows what in them. It looked like feces. But like it was just gross, right? Even though they've been going nuts and just destroying Microsoft property. And they really did. They vandalized a farmer's market taking place on the Microsoft plaza there. Even though they've done all of that, Microsoft has not publicly responded to anyone. No journalists have gotten a response about any of this from Microsoft yet. And so I can't verify a lot of these things. It seems like, and they call themselves the Intifada, right? Or the Microsoft Intifada, worker Intifada. And they have not complained about anyone getting fired for this yet. which suggests to me that maybe no one has gotten fired. I've heard from one person that one person did, but I have not gotten that verified yet. So I'm following up on all of that. And so far there have been 18 arrests because that second day of protests where was that again? Where they just went nuts and they just vandalized a bunch of stuff. Apparently they got a little rowdy with Microsoft security and the Redmond police who showed up. And so 18 of them were arrested. That made them very grumpy. And so then they held a third event, and the third event turned dark in a different way. It turned out not to be a violent event. They did not vandalize a bunch of stuff on the third day. The second day, they vandalized and turned violent. The third day, they started getting really anti-Jewish. It was crazy. It was like they were literally chanting in Arabic, "Go away, Jews." This wasn't a protest. And they were holding up imagery and they had signs praising people who had murdered and disemboweled Jews, and they were chanting in Arabic, "Go away, Jews." And it wasn't even it wasn't an anti-Israel protest. It wasn't an anti-Zionism protest. It wasn't a anti-war in Gaza protest. It was a wide-ranging schizophrenic event. They called it a press conference, and I watched the whole thing. It was about 2 hours long, and they live streamed it cheaply, I might add. They had a cell phone in portrait mode. So it was done. So it wasn't even like landscape. It wasn't even like, it was really cheap looking. And the sound was terrible and whatnot, but I watched the whole thing, and people were all over the map. Half of it delved into climate change briefly, but the thing they kept coming back to was their dislike of Jews. It came up over and over again, and so that really seemed to be the crux of the whole thing. Is they didn't want Jews at Microsoft, right? It was "Go away, Jews," over and over and over again. Crazy, right? Now, that third event, though, wasn't held on Microsoft company property. It was held right next door to it. Do I have a picture of that here? I think I might have a picture. Where is that at? Where's the picture? There it is. So they held it right next door to Microsoft company property. So then the question is what does Microsoft do about all that? Well, I know what I would do, but Microsoft's been quiet about the whole gosh darn thing. So we'll see. We'll find out. My guess is we'll have at least one more follow-up article and show this week, because what Microsoft does about this is going to have a really dramatic impact on a lot of employees at Microsoft. And all of this is happening within feet of where most versions of Windows were developed, where Windows Media and Office and all this stuff is worked on. I mean, if you look at the map here, it's right next to right there where they held the third event was right across the street from Building 25 of Microsoft, which is actually a building I worked in for a while. But some interesting things that happened in that building. That used to be where some of Microsoft's Internet Information Server stuff was being worked on. Some Windows Media stuff was over there in Building 25. It's some of Microsoft's HD DVD stuff was being worked on over there. All sorts of random things were happening over there. And so it impacts a lot of the Microsoft stuff. Plus, I know that there are similar groups at other tech companies that are looking to spin up and do similar things. So this is going to be spreading more than likely throughout the tech industry. I know there's talk of similar stuff happening over at Amazon, of course, and there's a group at Google that is looking to start some events up. Now it sounds like Google is going to take a hardline stance on those sorts of events, that they're not going to be allowing them. But we'll see what occurs. But that wasn't really all that happened this week. There was two other stories I want to talk about specifically because they made me really smile. The first was, and this is great. We can actually talk about a happy story. Microsoft Office for PowerPC was found. This is crazy. If you haven't seen the show for this or read the article, go check it out. But basically, the gist is this. Microsoft Office has versions that are compiled for Windows NT for DEC Alpha, MIPS, and PowerPC processors. A lot of people don't know that. They thought it was just for x86 class, but since they made NT, like Windows NT 4 and whatnot, for DEC Alpha, MIPS, and PowerPC, Microsoft also committed to making versions of Office, including Word, for those platforms. But the PowerPC version has been kind of lost to time. Now, I'm sure it's sitting on a server somewhere at Microsoft. When I was at Microsoft, they literally had a server. It was a nice Windows shared that everyone in the company could go to that had like every old version of Microsoft software archived and available for every employee at the company. It was amazing. I think it was just Whack Products was what that was. And it was there when I was at Microsoft. Granted, this was a quarter of a century ago. When I was there, I know that existed. Now, I never had a PowerPC Windows NT machine to run that on. I was working on the DEC Alpha stuff for Windows NT. So I was working on like Windows 2000 running on DEC Alpha machines, which was cool and kind of related to this. So I installed the version of Office for DEC Alpha on the Alpha version of Windows NT 5 or Windows 2000, but never the PowerPC. And so people have been looking because there are public archives of the Alpha version and the MIPS processor version, but not the PowerPC version. Well, someone found it literally on eBay in a shrink-wrapped box and installed it on a PowerPC version of NT and put it up on archive.org for everyone to enjoy, which is just absolutely glorious. But what's crazier about this is that, I don't know if you guys know this, but there have been projects in place to get Windows NT 4 and 3.51 for PowerPC working on old PowerPC Macintoshes like the original iMac and iBook and all that sort of thing, as well as the Nintendo GameCube, the Wii, and the Wii U. Those are all PowerPC-based game consoles, right? So you can run Windows NT 4.0 on a GameCube, not a joke, and install Microsoft Office on your GameCube. That is a real thing that you can do right now. I linked to it. Go check out the article for this one. It is titled MS Office for PowerPC Windows NT Found, and it's amazing. I've got links to all of the GitHub pages and whatnot where you can do that. Here's a picture of an original clamshell, the toilet seat iBook G3s. Those little blue beauties, the ones with the little flip-out blue handle, running Windows NT 4.0. Like, you can literally install that right now. It's not emulated. It's real on real hardware. So cool. I mean, that's the coolest thing. It's just so cool. I need to do this. I don't even know why I need to do this, but I need to do this. And I love the idea of having like a Nintendo GameCube running NT and Office. So awesome. The other story I wanted to talk about, because it's ridiculous, and I went into it earlier in the week. There's a show up on this. The UK government and UK universities have gone all in on very bizarre anti-computer propaganda, I guess. The University of East London put out a thing that says Wi-Fi doesn't grow on trees. Your screen time is damaging the climate. There are no monsters under the bed. They're on the bedside table charging. Like, it was, they literally have billboards for this stuff. It's crazy. They're trying to scare people away from using computers and cell phones and gadgetry of any kind. And then the UK government, the actual at gov.uk, put out a press release entitled National Drought Group Meets to address nationally significant water shortfall. Okay, so there's a bit of a drought. They have a little bit of a shortage of fresh drinking water. Okay, fine. That seems worthy of a press release. But one of the amazing thing was, I'm gonna read this to you now. They put out this is from the Environment Agency's Director of Water, put out a statement telling people how they can conserve water. We are grateful to the public following the restrictions were in place to conserve water in these dry conditions. Simple, everyday choices, such as turning off a tap, or deleting old emails, really helps the collective effort to reduce demand and help preserve the national health of our rivers and wildlife. They oh my gosh. They're basically trying to tell you that cell phones and computers destroy the climate, so you should stop using electronics. And if you have old email, you have to delete that old email because it's using too much water. Not just too much water, but too much water locally, right? So like the idea is that if you really want to take a bath in, let's say, London, and you're like, well, there's not enough water in London. Well, I better go delete some of my Gmail emails. Oh, now I have more water in London. I can take a bath now. It's the most asinine. It doesn't make any logical sense whatsoever. It's just asinine. I go into that more in depth in the article and on the show, but oh my gosh, absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Oh my word. It was a fun week. It was a crazy week. There was really crazy bad stories. There was some heartwarming stories. There were some good nerdy stories. And what it was not was a boring week. And we're not going to have a boring week again next week either. If you were hoping for a boring week, you're not going to get one. Next week, it is the end of the month of August. Supposedly, the schedule is that the case of USA v. Google, the one about search engine placement and monopoly, the one that could cause Google to be forced to stop paying those default search engine placement payments to Apple and Mozilla and everyone else, the one that could really just totally shake up the browser market and might even potentially force Google to split off Chrome and sell Chrome off entirely. The remedy is scheduled to be handed down from the judge this week. I have not heard rumblings about this, about what exactly is coming from the judge. I mean, if we look back over what the judge said during the cases, during the trials and his past rulings, it's not looking good for Google, for sure. And that's going to mean bad news for Mozilla. So we're probably going to hear the judge's ruling, Google freaking out, and Mozilla freaking out this week. That's probably going to happen. Now, ultimately, whatever the remedy phase is, Google will probably appeal the whole thing shortly. If not this week, then, in the weeks that follow. That will be most likely what happens, which means this whole thing will get drug out a little bit further. But that remedy ruling will hit this week, and that could lay the groundwork for what exactly we're going to see in the months ahead, impacting organizations like Mozilla that may lose 80% of their revenue. It could be really crazy. Plus, we're going to have follow-ups for the U.S. government now being the majority shareholder of Intel story, because that needs a lot more digging. We're going to have, assuredly, more news about the Microsoft intifada, because at some point, Microsoft is either going to respond to this, which is going to cause more craziness and potentially more violence, or Microsoft is not going to respond to this, which is going to cause more craziness and potentially more violence. So it's going to be a big news story. And that's just the stuff we know about right now. Because going into this last week, Microsoft intifada and the U.S. government having the largest shareholder stake of Intel, neither of those were on my bingo cards. Like those were not on my docket heading into this last week. I had other news stories, lesser news stories that I was like, I want to dig into these. Nope. These big ones came out of nowhere and hit me like a tidal wave. So who knows what's coming in the week ahead, but just the stuff we know of is going to be crazy. So it's very much a buckle up buttercup scenario. I want to make sure I repeat all this for everyone who's out there. Most videos from the Lunduke Journal are now subscriber only. The regular weekly Week in Tech, these videos are free for everybody. And occasionally one or two of the other videos, we had one other video that was free for everyone as well this week. And it is published wherever you get the Lunduke Journal. But always all podcast episodes, which includes the audio podcast versions of all the videos. So those audio podcasts are always free. So you can go grab those. Go to lunduke.com. Where do I got the Lunduke links up? There you go. Go to lunduke.com, and any of those where to listen links, the podcast RSS, Fountain, iTunes, Substack, and Spotify, always free for everyone, and always ad free. So you can just go grab those there. The same with the articles. The articles are always free for everybody. And you'll notice one of the great things about these articles, I'm just going to bring this up here. You guys, you scroll through them, there's no ads. It's just article. It's just nonstop article, and that's it. And that's all thanks to all the subscribers for making this possible. Not only do the subscribers make it so that the articles and the shows have no ads whatsoever, but it means I'm also completely free of any control of any other corporation. No company, big or small, can influence what the Lunduke Journal says, what the Lunduke Journal covers. And realistically, if you look at the tech industry in general, the tech journalism industry, even some of the best tech journalists out there are beholden to a number of companies. You load up whatever your other favorite Brand X tech journalist site is, and you load it up, and you start noticing after a while, there's certain stories they're avoiding. No matter how big the stories are, they either avoid them or put a spin on them. I mean, shoot, I remember when the Red Hat IBM leaks happened, and we got that flood of leaks out of both IBM and Red Hat. And then the lawsuits started against IBM and Red Hat, and they were getting sued a whole bunch. And the tech news outlets were just not covering it, not at all. So one of the biggest news stories of that year, and the tech news outlets not only were not covering it at all, but the handful of times they did get covered, they literally ran cover for IBM and Red Hat. I remember the Register refused to even talk about it. And then finally, when they did talk about it, they refused to talk about all the damning stuff that got leaked about it. And instead, they ran an article that was praising Red Hat for discrimination, praising IBM, and attacking anyone who would attack Red Hat or IBM. They literally ran cover for their corporate masters. And I don't blame them necessarily, because the moment they bite the hand that feeds them, they're out of business. So that's why the Lunduke Journal does things differently. The hand that feeds the Lunduke Journal is you. You get to determine the future of this sort of tech journalism. If you are all out there subscribing to the Lunduke Journal, I don't have to go with my hat in hand to Google or Microsoft or IBM and say, would you like to run ads on my site? Would you like me to write a puff piece article for you that looks like an article but is really an advertisement? I don't have to do that like the other tech journalists do. I get to just cover the news stories that I think need to be covered. That's why the Lunduke Journal focuses on the news stories that so often just get ignored, or at least ignored in the way effectively by all the other news outlets. And so thank you for allowing me to do all of that. So, and as a perk, anyone who subscribes gets access to all the videos. Now, again, you can follow all of the news from the Lunduke Journal without access to the videos. You have all the audio podcasts, You have all the articles. You get them all. Enjoy them. Again, go to lunduke.com for all of that. If you do subscribe, two big things you get: the videos, which are available on Locals, X, Patreon, YouTube, and Substack. Again, and Itch. You can actually subscribe on Itch to get MP4 downloads. And those links are all up at lunduke.com. So you can choose where you subscribe. And you get access to the forum. And the forum is just a little hangout spot for just us. It's like a little mini country club where there's no trolls and it's just Lunduke Journal subscribers. And let's see, this is the last week of the 50% off for August deal for subscriptions. So for if you want to subscribe via Locals or Substack or lifetime subscriptions with Bitcoin, you can get a lifetime subscription with Locals, Substack, or Bitcoin. But everything's 50% off this week. Yearly, monthly subscriptions, MP4 downloads, lifetime subscriptions, all of it. But that's through the end of the month, so through August 31st. You can grab those there. And if you go to lunduke.com and just scroll down, there's a little 50% off. 50% off Lunduke subscriptions there. Go ahead and take advantage of it. It's great. Realistically, the more people that subscribe to Lunduke Journal, the better. Whether it's at that crazy cheap discounted price or higher price, it almost doesn't even matter. It's just the more people that subscribe, the better, right? The more people that get all this news, the better. I would rather have a broad base. I would rather have enough to survive and keep the Lunduke Journal going, but have a broad base of thousands of subscribers at a very low amount per month, than have one or two big subscribers that pay for everything, right? Because it's great. There's no one subscriber or even just small group of subscribers that put in the majority of Lunduke Journal subscriptions. So much like how the Lunduke Journal doesn't take money from big tech corporations because we don't want to be influenced by them, I also don't want to have to be influenced by, one individual who comes in and pays for, 80% of the Lunduke Journal's bills. I don't want that either. It's nice to have that big, broad base of huge numbers of subscribers all at a low amount that keeps the lights on, because then there's no one person that can come in and demand that I cover things a certain way or threaten to pull their subscription or anything like that. It doesn't matter. I get to cover the truth no matter what, because of all of you. So the more subscribers, even at the lower prices, the discounted prices, the better. Like you can get a yearly subscription right now for $27. That works out to, what is that? $2.25 per month. That's a pretty great deal. And of course you can get a lifetime subscription for $100, which is 50% off the normal price. And we might sunset the lifetime pretty soon, but I thought about sunsetting it in the past. And if I do ever sunset it, of course, everyone who already has one will have a lifetime subscription for months, because that's for life, because that's how that works. But I really like the lifetime subscription. It's something that I like. I wish other services had that, because I would get lifetime subscriptions to other things if I could. Like, you know what I mean? Like if a movie streaming service had a lifetime option, I'd get that. I know they won't do that, but I would like it for me. So that's why I keep it around. It's not necessarily the best business idea in the world long term, but it's something that I really like myself. So I want to offer it for everyone else who does like it. But if you just want to grab the monthly or yearly or the MP4s, grab it. So again, go to lunduke.com. The 50% off thing is right there on the site. And before we head off, I would just like to put out a renewed call. If you are in a tech company or a tech foundation or organization and you see something funky, if you see weird stuff going on, whatever it is, technical things, business things, weird political DEI things, whatever, and you want to become a whistleblower, go to lunduke.com. I have my email address right there on the webpage. And there's also a link that says Become a Tech Whistleblower. And it's got some tips in there on how to contact me and retain your anonymity. Because one of the most important things for the Lunduke Journal is that all confidential sources, all whistleblowers, providing leaked material to the Lunduke Journal, and there's been a ton of it over the last couple of years. I mean, a ton of you have done this. And it's provided some of the most important coverage in the tech industry because of that. If you want to do that and really retain your anonymity, you don't even want the Lunduke Journal knowing who you are. There are some tips in there on how to do that. Now, it's also important to note that the Lunduke Journal has never and will never divulge sources. If you wish to remain anonymous, just make that clear. Just say so. I want to stay anonymous. I don't mind if you know who I am, Lunduke, but I don't want anyone else to know, and that will be that. You'll notice one of the things that the Lunduke Journal does is I never publish the original untouched files that get leaked to me. Because there's too many ways that corporations make an attempt to fingerprint or find out who leaked material. For example, you may remember, was it earlier this year, we were leaked a video from Adobe. From an Adobe internal meeting where Adobe was talking about getting rid of some of their DEI policies and whatnot. Oh yeah, they said something like Adobe has never had DEI hiring and firing policies, but going forward they will discontinue having them. Right? They said we got a video of their head honcho saying stuff like that, and this made Adobe pissed off. So internally, Adobe started adding watermarks to their live streamed videos, right? And so it's critically important. So anyone who is leaking those videos to me, we have to be careful. And so I keep on top of all of the various methods that these companies use to determine the identity of potential leakers. And I have a series of scripts that I maintain internally to do a couple of checks on files, to do checks of audio and video for any potentially embedded data. I never release the original files. I make sure that when I do release things, there is no metadata in any of the files, that there is no identifiable information in any screenshots. One time a guy took a picture of a screen and there was a reflection in the screen. You could actually kind of see his face a little bit. So we had to do another another round of grabbing on that. Like, I go through very carefully and I fine-tooth comb. And I make sure that there's no identifiable information in these. It's critically important. And to date, not one whistleblower or leaker to the Lunduke Journal has been identified by the organization they were blowing the whistle on. And I am very proud of that track record. And I fully intend that track record to stay 100% airtight going forward. But part of that is making sure I'm very clear with all of you the ways that you can also keep yourself anonymous even from me. So again, go to lunduke.com and click the Become a Tech Whistleblower link if you want to find more information on that. Get a hold of me and blow the whistle. If you work at Microsoft and you know anything about what's going on with the Microsoft worker intifada, the response to it and whatnot, or you're just hearing about it from your fellow employees, reach out to me. I would love to hear about it. If you work at Intel and you have any information about how Intel employees are feeling, or the gossip or the word internally on what's happening with the U.S. government now having the largest shareholder stake of Intel, reach out to me. This is information that would be valuable to have out there for everyone else in the tech industry. So thank you to everyone who's become a whistleblower. I really couldn't do this without you. You are truly amazing. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, nerds and nerdettes across the inner tubes, I do declare, end broadcast.